Hello, everyone. I'm Anumani, your modern day shaman and the author of Unmasking Your Soul, a transformational journey of truth, light, and healing. And today I have this wonderful guest, Rachael Angelo, who's a writer, author, and poet. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, how are you?
Good to see you.
It's good to see you.
So, thank you for being on the show. And I'm going to start by reading your bio so everyone knows a little bit about you. And
Okay.
then we're going to get started. So, Rachel spends her free time working on her writing or diving into a good series while she isn't running around with an energetic 5-year-old boy. Her work ranges from sci fi, fantasy, short stories, and poetry. Based out of Philadelphia, Rachel is the co founder of Rightly Me, a website for writers by writers. She also has a passion for deep philosophical conversations that not only warm her soul, but energize her spirit. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, we're going to start the way we start all the shows, which is the question about soul and how soul expresses through you, what your definition or feeling of soul is.
Soul. So, this is a really good question. Definitely an infinite being, but even more so than that, it's just the truest form of who we are, um, like our essence. I think we're most beautiful when we're really pushing that forward and just being ourselves, living in our purpose, and living on purpose as well.
Beautiful. And I love that because this is all about being in that place and dropping into who we are and unmasking all the aspects of ourselves so we can show up in the world in the most authentic way and in our highest and best version of ourselves. So tell us about your journey of unmasking and you having this passion about writing and your poetry.
Okay. Poetry's been newer on the list as far as writing. That kind of started. I I went through a divorce so many years back, and my son was about 2 when that happened, and my whole world shifted. And for the longest time, I was always doing what made everyone else happy, and I had no idea what made Rachel happy, what made me happy, or who I was, or what that even looked like. So, ironically, the first decision I made for me was leaving that relationship, and it's in a way it was like that blessing because it turned out to be the best thing for all of us in the long run, and it's really put me down a path where I was, when you're going through that, you're very messy for a long time. It feels like everything's all over the place, and you're just kind of asking yourself, what am I doing with my life? Because you feel very broken. But being broken like that forced me to try new things and meet new people. And along the way, I was writing at like my darkest moments. So it started off with my novel, which is a whole series that I'm working on getting published. And falling in love with those characters was able to help take me somewhere else. And while I was creating that, it was like birthing something back into existence for me. And then after starting like a different job, and I met someone, my friend who is my partner and co-founder of Rightly Me, was like, "Hey, let's try this thing. Let's try blogging." And I was like, "Hey, I have no idea how to do it, but okay." So she knew she had done it before. So from doing that, we started going to writers conferences and branching out because she knew a lot of people, and that that prompted me to start doing different writing and actually not just being like, hey, I'm the girl who's writing in my bedroom at night, but I'm the girl who's actually writing for people to see now. So the journey's been really quite amazing, and I'm so happy that I've I've pushed myself into those uncomfortable moments to get to where I'm at now. And the poetry was also prompted by her because she was starting to get into it and knew other people. So I was like, I'll try this out. And I released a chapbook probably about a month and a half ago called From Death to Birth. And it was the most terrifying thing I've done in a long time because I was like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? I'm being so vulnerable. What if nobody likes it? And then afterwards, it was like probably about a month into it. Lots of things started happening, and I had so much good feedback from other people that I was like, this weight was off my shoulders, and it felt so good to put my vulnerability out there. So that's been a
So,
lot of the process right now.
so Rachel, you are young in years, but old in soul years. So
Yes.
when was I'm curious, when was the first time where you felt that part that you talked about, that essence, that spirit part of you? Do you remember how old you were when you recognized or
I
were
mean,
aware of that?
I feel like I've always had an affinity ever since I was little. Like even in high school, it's like my friends are really good. We'd have these conversations, but there'd be times where it's like I'd start talking about stuff, and people just be like, what are you talking about, or what do you mean?" And I'd be like, "Well, like, do you ever look up at the stars and you just feel like there's so much more out there?" And it's like some people would get it, but other people would be looking at me like, "Can't you just act like a 16 or 17-year old girl?" And I'd be like, "Well, for me, this is being 16 or 17." Um, but I've always been that way. And then as I really dived deeper into the writing and met more people who I was watching be themselves and really be comfortable in that, I was like, yeah, this is what feels right. Like everyone's being authentic around me now. I love that. No one, it doesn't matter if you're talking about like, the stars to like, whatever was silly on TV or just, anything. And being able to jump back and forth between conversations. So it's kind of like as I've gotten older, it's helped me to feel more authentic in myself. But I've always been that way. I feel like since I was little, like I've always talked about like soulmates and like again, like I'd be in high school and my friends would look at me and be like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I don't know, you never just wanted a really deep connection with somebody, and they're like, I got like looking at me like I don't know, and I was like, okay, somebody will get this someday.
So tell us more about you talked about getting a divorce and the separation of your family. Was there a pivotal moment that you knew like, oh my God, I need to change something, and part of what I need to change is the relationship that I'm in?
Yeah, it was actually twofold. There was one thing. There was one day. It was very little. My son was he was still so young, and the two of us were already having issues, but like we were never we didn't nothing in front of him. Like everything was always very good.
Mm-hmm.
But I had realized at the time his dad went to hug me, and my son freaked out, and I was like, oh my goodness, my son's freaking out because he's not used to seeing his father hug his mother. So it was like one little moment there where I'm like, that should not be normal. And then there was another thing that I had a bit of a health scare at one point. Um, because I really wasn't taking care of myself, and I didn't realize how depressed I was. Like I wasn't really eating and I wasn't doing any of it intentionally. It's just, I think I kind of woke up one day and I was like, wow, I've been a zombie for the last, I don't know how long. And I was like, is this really worth it to jeopardize like my health, my sanity? Is it going to be worth it for my son in the long run? Is it going to be healthy for any of us? So like a couple of those combinations was kind of like my eye opener when I woke up, and I was like, you can't keep doing what you're doing because it's not going to end well for anybody. So it was a very hard decision, but I'm like, this is a decision I have to make. I think it's going to be best for us all.
And what kinds of things were you feeling in your body? The body always is a good barometer for what's happening inside of us. It certainly was for me as well. Were there specific things you were feeling in your body?
I think really what it was like, it's almost funny because looking back sometimes now, like I have to really remember how I felt because I feel like I said, it was like a zombie period, and
Hmm.
that's part of it. Like I felt nothing. I really don't remember feeling anything. And other than coming home and I was like, okay, I had my time mapped out. I'm going to spend time with my son. And we had our routine, which I loved every day. My light at the end of the tunnel was I'm going to work on my writing. And it just became this beautiful escape for me. And having that was like, I fell into this routine I didn't even know I was in. And it was just so beautiful because at the end of like 8 months of not realizing kind of like how far I'd let myself go, I also had this whole story that I had birthed in those 8 months. So it was like I was lost, but I was also finding myself through that in a way. But yeah, it was mostly numb. I think my body just felt so numb to everything that was going on at the time.
Yeah, and I've heard that quite a bit from other people that I've worked
Mm-hmm.
with, the numbness, and it's it's you can think of that as kind of a separation from the
Yeah.
spirit part, the body part. The body always gives us signs. For me, it was fainting spells, that something was happening inside, and
Mm-hmm.
I kept ignoring, right? And so the body keeps trying to get our attention. And I'm bringing this up so that the people who are watching can also kind of think about what's happening in their life and how their body may be trying to get their attention to help
Yeah.
them with what's happening inside. So, was there a particular mask that you feel you were wearing up until that point where you were pretending something or being somebody else because you thought you had to?
I think my biggest thing was learning to kind of learning to say no, I don't like this, or no, I don't want this. More of like a mask of I'm just going to keep doing what everyone else wants because that's what makes them happy, and I was not even acknowledging what made me happy and thought I couldn't. So I think the biggest thing was being able to speak my truth, which it took me a while to get there, even after following through with certain things. But throughout the last 4 years, it's people who've even met me, because I have friends who I met during that time, and like to be friends with me now, they will say they're like, Rachel, I'm like blown away by your transformation, and I'm like, well, thank you. Um, I'm like, I really don't know who that person is that you met 4 years ago. I'm kind of happy that this is the person sitting in front of you, but without her, I wouldn't be here. So I would really say that the mask was really just speaking my truth. That was my biggest thing, was being able to feel like I could be me. Like I was always cut, like even little things. Like I have this laugh that's somehow infectious to other people. I think it's the dorkiest thing on in the world. I have like a two-part laugh. I snort, and I sound like a high, like there's like a snort and a high pitchness to it, and it probably sounds either hilarious or awful to some people, but it's like the people around me now, because like when I'm really laughing, it just escalates, and everyone's like, we love that laugh. And I'm like, years ago, I would have been way too embarrassed to show that to
Yeah.
people. And now I'm like, who else do you know that's going to laugh like this and just own it? So
That's great. Yes, and laughter does open the doorway for joy and for
yeah.
lightheartedness, for us to not to take ourselves so seriously and to really
Mm-hmm.
enjoy life. So that's awesome. I like using that as a great tool. I'm sure it helps, you know, for you when you're with your friends. And
Oh,
I've been in situations like that where one person starts laughing and then the other person starts laughing and then everyone starts laughing. It's just so contagious.
yeah. And you don't even know what you're laughing at by the end of it all, but you're
Yes.
like, everyone else's reactions just, yeah, it's actually such a beautiful thing too when it gets to that point. And
Yeah.
I got to say, like, I love it when I hear it's not just me, but when you start hearing 4 and 5 and 6 people start laughing, you're like, this is what life's all about. We need more of this in life.
That's right. Absolutely. So tell us about your chapbook and how you birthed it and what your process was.
So, like I said, with the poems, this is new to me.
Can you show the cover so everyone can see it?
Yes, yes, I can. This is the cover
Ah,
from Death
great.
to
And they
Birth.
can get it on Amazon, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and there's a link in my bio on Instagram. which is What's Right, WRITE for Rachel, RACHAEL. Um, Honestly, so from death to birth, I broke it down into 3 sections. So it's almost like telling a story. And I broke it down by grievances, unmasking, and rebirth. So a lot of it is like, some of it is like, it's heartbreaking, but it's the feelings of being sad and all those things that you have to work through, then kind of like unmasking myself and then kind of rebirthing myself at the same time. So it was a process. And ironically, once I sat down and started doing this, I did it very quickly, actually. It's amazing. And then I had help from a friend who helped me edit it. So we were putting them all together almost in like a story form. Okay, this definitely fits under this section. And because sometimes even though like I know what's going on up here, sometimes I need help. The fun chaos that is a writer's thoughts some days. But yeah, it was really kind of like telling it's my story, but I feel like it can relate to anybody who feels like they've had their heart broken or they were lost or felt like they needed to start over again. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about it. So I hope it can either help other people relate to something or in some feel like they can do the same thing for others around other people.
So tell us about the process, because I believe that writing in any creative aspect, and I believe that we all have some sort of creative energy flowing and connecting through us from the universe, be it creating a poem or, designing something else or creating something else, not in the traditional sense that we think of, but we all have some sort of creative expression. And writing really can be a spiritual practice. For me, it certainly helped me to heal a lot of wounds that I was still holding. And so what was your process to actually write these poems? Did you have something that you did to be able to get the writing through?
So a lot of it, what would happen is maybe it was one of those days. I don't know if I want to say a bad day or it was just like I have a lot of emotions. I have a lot of thoughts. I would come home and I would write. Sometimes it would be 1 poem. Sometimes it would be 4 or 5. And it was like by the end of it, it was like the same effect that, if you ever need to cry and you just sobbed your eyes out, but you feel like you've released something, it would be the same effect as that. Like I put it out there, I let it go. It's not inside of me anymore. And then there's also other times where I would just put my headphones in. Sometimes if I'm listening to certain kinds of music, depending on my mood, and I just kind of go into another world, so to speak. And that would help me just kind of be like, okay, where am I going with all of this? And group my thoughts together and then prompt the next thing. And as far as the poetry goes, sometimes not even just what was happening in my own life. I could have watched something that like things that are happening in the world and things like that. Sometimes it's just, and watching other people talk about empaths, like feel other people's pain too. So it would kind of depend on the day. It could be like a whole bunch of things combined into one. But I usually pull out my laptop, open it up, and I would just sit there. And I think there's a quote that all writing is bleeding in front of a typewriter. And that's really what it feels like some days. You're just literally pouring your heart out into it. So I normally like to just, like I said, put my headphones in and let the emotions come out on their own, however they feel like doing that, whether it's happy, sad, mad, however the case is.
Great. So can you share one of your poems with us?
Yes, I can. This one will actually be from the Unmasking section.
Okay.
Love is a beautiful thing. It can warm you, complete you, feed you, nurture you, protect you. Love is a dangerous thing. It can break you, defeat you, wound you, ravage you, ruin you. True love is a powerful thing. It can save you and lift you up, It can destroy you and tear you down. We dive into the deep waters, not knowing if we will sink or swim. Sinking is terrible. No air, lungs burning, the world closing in. But to taste such sweetness is a victory all its own, and I would take the chance again, not caring if I sink or swim.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. So if you were to give advice to the people who are watching, are there any tips and advice for them? Two things. So one, making changes in their life, right, so that they could really step into more of who they are. And then the part about writing, I want you to give some, because I'm sure there's people watching who have some sort of creative endeavor that's wanting to birth through them. So start with the tips on kind of the unmasking part, and then you know, some tips on the creative aspect.
So unmasking, the first thing, or really the biggest thing I would tell anyone to do is do things that scare you. That's the only way you're really going to invoke change. Things that terrify you. It terrified me leaving my marriage. It terrified me when I was like, because I kind of did everything all at once. I was like, all right, we're selling the house. I'm leaving this. I left my old job. I started a new one. And I was comfortable. I had been in the same spot for 5 years. So I was like, you need to do this. And then from there, I even took on jobs that like, I don't necessarily, I love speaking to people, but not in front of people. So I was forced to really speak to more people on a level that I was not comfortable with. And like interviewing, I hate interviewing. It's like painful for me, but I started to do so much of it that it got to a point where it's like, okay, I may not really particularly care about this job, but it's practice for me now, versus it being painful with little things. So that's what I would encourage anyone to do. Maybe it's like terrifying to think of getting up in front of people, so you start off small. Like if you like poetry, like how we do these, I only did my first reading not too long ago, but I intend to do more. And that's another thing. Again, like it's scary to have to do these things, but it's freeing once you're done. And as you do those things and you start to learn to speak your truth, that's how change happens. Another way to really unmask yourself is sometimes people, places, and things you have to change. If you're used to the same patterns and habits, you know that. Hence why I think I did change everything across the board and got a new job. And I didn't change all my relationships, but it was helped me to gain new ones. And by doing that, it led to one job led to the next. And at different jobs, I've met other people who are into writing and acting and music. And it's phenomenal because the more I follow this, what I am passionate about and what I love, I'm meeting other people who love it just as much, or who love their passion, and we all appreciate each other for that. So that's really what I would suggest for unmasking your soul, and not being afraid to show who you are. Where life really does tell you when it presents itself to you, and you can be scared of it, but you can't let that fear hold you back from doing what you love. So that's the way of unmasking. As far as writing, at least what's helped me along the way, there's bloggers out there, there's small independent presses out there. You may not know anything about blogging, but I didn't know anything about blogging. And even though blogging may not be like the number one way into writing, it's a step in the door to help meet other writers. You can join writing groups. And then this way you can also start to meet other people that maybe help. It's really good to have somebody help critique your work. And then you meet people, like you can meet people who are along the lines of you and what your writing is, and meet like friends. So you can, when you have people help critique, like once I started having people read my stuff, that was huge for me. That was like step one in doing something that scared me. But then you're getting feedback, which is helping you, because if you're new to it and you haven't had feedback, or you haven't really had a chance to meet a lot of people yet, like you need that help. You need to to kind of get that that education, because I was amazed once I dived into this world how many facets there are of it, and that's a beautiful thing because there's so much you can do with it. There's different routes you can take. I personally started interning for a small press, which I love, and I got that because of a friend who like recommended me. I'm really trying to think of like all the things we've done. Writers' conferences, they're big. You don't necessarily have to know anybody when you go there, but a lot of these conferences, a lot of the same people show up year after year, and then there's new people. Some of them are geared for different things, but it's a way to just meet new people. You know, make up a business card. You don't create a business card. This way, it just gives you something to hand out when you're talking to people. You're getting experience in the world, and most people have booths or something set up to help you learn more, or they're handing out materials for you to go onto their websites, and there's just a lot of information out there. You'd be amazed how much information is out there. We just don't always realize it. And then, you know, this way you can learn about publishing. You can learn about small presses versus big presses and self-publishing. Like, I know it probably sounds like I'm being more overwhelming, but I'm it's that these are all the steps I took personally. And the more you go to these things and you create those connections, now you have friends who you can say, hey, do you mind just reading over my manuscript, or do you mind pointing me in the right direction? And everyone really is supportive in this community. They want to help each other. People want to see each other succeed. So it's out there. So like I said, definitely like writing groups is a good start, and conferences are always a good start. And really just go online. You can type in writers or presses, and so much information will pop up to see what's out there. And a lot of like writing bloggers or at least point you in the right direction, depending on what you're looking for, because everyone's got their own niche. So they point you in that direction. I feel like you can go into Google and search anything, and literally something will pop up for everything you see.
Well, I just want to reiterate something you talked about. The more we drop into who we are, the universe conspires to help you bring that forward. And the people are going to show up, right? The opportunities. Yeah. And our job is to listen to the small nudges that are coming from our soul that lead us to the right path.
Exactly.
So I want to move into how do you see the next leg of your journey? I'm a big believer in vocalizing what we want to create in the world. So paint a picture of what it is that, you know, you're seeing and you're working on creating.
So in the very near future, I have another chapbook in the works, as well as a novella that I am writing with the co-founder of Rightly Me. I have started the second book in my series, so that more down the line, I see that getting published and taking that to like very big levels. That's my goal for that. That's been my baby since day one. So working on getting that published, and that's the other thing in this community. Everyone will tell you that now with all the social media out there and all the avenues that we have, they, like, you know, if you go to a writers conference or if you go somewhere, people will suggest, you know, getting a following. So sometimes that's why people start blogging, or they do YouTube channels, or whatever the case is, because it becomes easier to market yourself. And with social media, it's insane how much access you have to everything. So that's kind of where like these smaller projects right now is helping me build my platform for the bigger ones. So I definitely, with the next chapbook in the works and the novella, that'll be the immediate future within the next few months. And then bigger picture is getting my baby published once and for all for everyone to see.
And we hold you in that light and the unfolding and the manifestation of all of that. And not to ruin the series, but I know your spiritual name is Trinity.
Yes. Yes.
As my spiritual name is Anumani. And tell us a little bit about your, because she's going to be the character, right? In some of your work.
So in essence, I wanted something different. And like I said, I've always kind of looked up at the stars. And I think I actually just said this to you the other day, that there's times where my feet are planted on the ground, but I look up and I feel more connected up there than I do standing on my own 2 feet here. And when I started looking into my series, I looked up names because I wanted to name my characters with purpose. And I had found the name Trinity, obviously meaning 3 in 1. And I was thinking, what would I love a place, if you want to call it a planet or wherever it is, what would I love that to be, like what its existence to be? And purity, hope, and love is, it just like, it rang so much depth with me, because that's really like a lot of my basis with things. So I was like, I would love to have a place that really represented that. And it is fantasy and fiction, so obviously characters will have powers, which I'm basing off of the elements, which has been fun too, to do that kind of research. But so I wanted the purity and the essence of this place, Trinity, to just really be a sacred place. And I wanted to see that it's not the biggest place out there in the universe, but because it's built off of such principles and foundations, and that runs so deep, that it's got a power that you can't really quite describe. Just like we talk about true love and that being amazing. So it's kind of like the same concept, that you don't have to be huge. You just, you got to be packing a lot in here, and it goes a long way. So
Yes. And I love that name because I love the Matrix, and
yes,
Trinity was one of the characters in the Matrix, and she was a badass. So I'm sure your character is powerful, but yet holds the true power, which is that place of purity and love and hope,
yes,
for
yes.
humanity. So I am so excited for you and holding you in that, because I know it's going to be big.
Yes, I feel that too.
So, any last words for our audience, and tell us how people can reach you if they want to contact you?
So you can come to www.writellyme, WRITELYME.com. You can also reach out at hello@writellyme.com. That's email. I think I did mention earlier, I have an Instagram, which is what's right, WRITE 4, the number 4, Rachael, RACHAEL. So you can grab me there. Those are the biggest ways to get in touch with me. And final words would just be you, even if it's terrifying. And if you don't know who you are yet, do something different to help you figure out what that is. In the beginning, I had to do things and figure out things I didn't like or didn't feel right to help me find the things that did. And you get there. So it's like we say, you get guidance along the way as you start to take the steps in those directions. And it could seem like the littlest thing, but it's just one foot in front of the other. You don't get to the top of the staircase by, most people don't skip them. You just one foot in front of the other. Before you know it, you've climbed it. You've climbed the top. But you can't focus on the hill. You just have to focus on what's in front of you, and it comes before you know it.
That is so wonderfully said. Thanks, Rachael. I just want to remind everybody that you are love and you are loved.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing everyone soon. Thanks, Rachael, for being on the show. I'll put all your contact info under the video when we're done here. And
Great.
just wishing everyone a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you
care,
so much for having me.
Absolutely. Loved having you. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.